Hi, my name's Aithey. If you're used to my usual format of videos, things are changing just for a little bit, since my current schedule's kinda backed up at the moment. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Model I, which I've had for quite some time now. So this is going to be a pretty short review compared to the usual long ones that I put out. Before we get started, it should be noted that this mouse was sent out for review by Glorious, but you should know by now that all opinions here are my own, and this does not affect my review in any way. I was also an early tester for this mouse, way before the initial leaks and release, but just figured I'd be transparent about that last part. The price is $60 US, and my hand size for reference is 18 by 10, what I would consider medium-sized hands. The packaging is a bit bulkier this time around, and includes some extra magnetic pieces. It comes with 4 of these magnetic buttons, one of which I will go ahead and demonstrate how it works right now. So as you can see, there are 2 magnetic buttons. This one's currently attached, but I'm just attaching this one to show you an example of what it would look like if you were trying to do it. So you let go, make sure it's snugly in there, might need to adjust it, and there you go. Buttons inside the mouse, not going to fall out anytime soon. Now the sensor being used here is the BAMF sensor, but this is the first time we've seen it in one of Glorious's wired mice. I've had no issues during gameplay with this mouse, and I couldn't find any issues when testing it with Mouse Tester. The software is about the same from what you can expect from Glorious, so I won't go too deep into that. Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 are still using the GM 8.0s, along with the 4 side buttons, but I don't believe they're using 8.0s. They might actually be using Omrons. I haven't opened it up to check, but I will be opening it up for a teardown. There's no side play or button wobble on the main buttons, and there is a sniper thumb button, which feels pretty out of reach, depending on how you grip it. I personally think the sniper button is a pretty useless gimmick these days that sort of died off a few years back. But again, going back to the sniper button, I think it's pretty useless considering it's sort of out of reach to the point where, unless you have slightly above average hands, you're going to have a lot of trouble reaching that sniper button with your thumb. You'd have to really sort of adjust your fingers in order to get a good grip on it, which is really unfortunate, considering I'd really hoped that they'd bring the button just a bit closer in early prototype testing. The side buttons are held pretty firmly in there as well. They're kind of difficult to remove after installing them, so just be warned. I'd initially told them during prototype feedback to add a lip to the buttons, but it looks like that never actually happened, unfortunately. So you may have to find some other tool to pry them out, as using them with your fingernails just not optimal in my opinion. The scroll wheel here is about what you can expect from previous Glorious mice. It's a smooth scroll similar to Glorious's newer mice, which feels lubed as the others do. It feels the exact same as the others, not much to say here, though considering Glorious couldn't find a substitute for the infinite scroll wheel in the original G502, you're a bit at a loss here. The magnetic side buttons just sort of feel like a distraction from that loss. Now when it comes to the shape here, the top profile of the shape isn't too low at the front, with a hump in the middle that falls off at the back, while the sides are pretty flat and narrow, which I personally really like. It makes it feel surprisingly good for all game genres, and not just your MMO, MOBA work environment mouse. It's an all-matte body with glossy side buttons and glossy DPI buttons. The cable here feels pretty good about what you can expect from their other mice, and the stock feet, I honestly don't see any reason to replace either of these, unless of course you're going for an aesthetic look, but I would highly recommend getting a paracord from your local paracord dealer. The weight here is about 69 to 70 grams, and around 74 grams with just a bit of cable. The structure of the shell here feels pretty solid, no creaking or unwanted rattle when shaking the mouse. I'd say Glorious has definitely improved their QC these days, which is always great to see. Though I can't speak for how well their mice will hold up in the long term, I would just suggest you look into newer feedback on long-term Model D or new Model O wireless unit users. In short, there's really strong build quality this time around. The G502 has always been pretty highly recommended for a productivity and casual gaming mouse, but the weight has never really been in an acceptable spot, unfortunately. While I don't think this mouse will dethrone the G502 anytime soon, I think these two mice will happily coexist on the market to compare for those who want a full productivity mouse like the G502, or a lightweight productivity mouse like the Model I for a bit of everything without the strain of the G502's weight problem. The loss of the infinite scroll wheel here will definitely a big one to consider, at the very least. So here's a quick sound test just so you know what to expect from the sound profile. Left mouse button, right mouse button, the sniper button, and then all 3 side buttons from front to back. Scroll click, scroll movement, and the DPI switch. And that about covers it. I will say that the sniper button probably sounds the worst out of all of them and feels the worst out of all of them. I'm now just going to do a quick teardown so you can figure out how to get inside of the mouse and see what the internals look like. We have to remove the mouse feet. Let's go ahead and do that. You have one mouse foot at the back, two mouse feet at the back, with two screws under them. Then you have two side screws on the left side of the mouse, if you're looking at it from below like I am. No screws on the right side of the mouse, so we can go ahead and put that back. I'm assuming there's no screws under the front, but it doesn't hurt to check. Yep, no screws at the front of the mouse can be found. So let's go ahead and get this thing open. Pry the thumb area with your fingernail, at least that's the way that I found it. And then try to slide a guitar pick tool or some kind of soft prying tool into the shell to get a good gap going until you get it to pop off. Now you want to make sure this happens on both sides, I believe. And then here we have a look at the inside of the mouse. You have a pretty sizable ribbon cable here. If I can get the camera to focus here, probably not. I will take photos of what the inside looks like. So this is what our PCB looks like. And we do have our GM 8.0s. And it looks like the side buttons are using Huano switches. Green dot Huano switches. My cat is in the way. Sorry. And the PCB at the top is pretty messy, but relatively simple setup. And actually, this looks a lot easier to take apart than previous glorious mice.